I still remember the smell of that bank lobby. Polished marble, old leather, and a faint, metallic scent of money and fear. I sat across from the manager, a nervous wreck with a neatly tied knot in his silk tie. He'd just come back from the vault, clutching a small key and a piece of yellowed paper. His face? I'd seen ghosts look healthier. He was sweating, despite the air conditioning. He stammered, his eyes darting to the door. I had only given him an old, tarnished key, a key my father had left me instead of the multi-million-dollar business he handed to my older brother. In that moment, watching this bank manager go utterly pale and start to tremble, I knew the game had changed, and for the first time in my adult life, I knew I hadn't been forgotten. I had been chosen. Hello, everyone. I'm in my late 60s now, living a quiet life that was hard-earned. I've spent a lifetime watching how people, even family, can be blinded by ambition and greed. I've seen the bitter sting of being overlooked, undervalued, and outright dismissed, and I've learned that sometimes the greatest treasures come not in grand gestures, but in small, easily missed details. If you've ever felt the cold rush of betrayal from someone you trusted, if you've ever been made to feel smaller than you are, or if you've ever dreamt of serving justice to someone who thoroughly wronged you, I want you to take a moment, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and get ready, because today I'm going to share a real-life story about my family, a 40-year feud, a $50 million inheritance, a dusty old briefcase, and the day I finally got to use the line I had waited decades to deliver. This is my story. This is the story of how my brother inherited an empire, but I inherited the ground it stood on. Let's begin. My father, bless his heart, was a self-made man. Started with a single truck and built a logistics firm into a regional powerhouse. Warehouses, transport fleets, distribution centers, a true $50 million empire by the time he was done. But his success came with a cost, and that cost was paid, mostly, by me. My older brother was the mold, 6 feet tall, booming voice, an absolute natural at charming suppliers and intimidating competitors. He was everything Dad wanted in an heir, aggressive, loud, and constantly demanding attention. My brother, the golden child. And then there was me. I was quieter, more meticulous. I preferred the hum of the server room to the roar of the loading dock. I didn't want to be the business. I wanted to understand the business, from the ground up, the intricate web of contracts and land deeds. I was the one who could spot the $10,000 mistake in a $10 million ledger. But to my father, who measured success in decibels and dollars, I was just... I remember once, when I was 17, I spent my entire summer vacation digitizing all of Dad's old land deeds, discovering a dozen properties that weren't fully titled. I brought the finished binder to him, proud. My brother had just bought Dad a new leather office chair. Dad took the chair, smiled at my brother, and then glanced at my binder. "Good boy. Now you can focus on school. Your brother will handle the big picture." The binder sat on his desk, unlooked at, for months. That feeling, that hot knot in my stomach, the feeling of being so thoroughly underestimated, It defined my 20s and 30s. Every time my brother would boast, "He's good with the paperwork," it was a tiny knife twist. It wasn't praise. It was a dismissal. Dad passed away a year ago. It wasn't sudden, but it was fast. Cancer. In the last few months, I was the one there. My brother was always too busy finalizing the new distribution contract. I was the one holding the cup of water, adjusting the pillows, but even in his final weeks, Dad kept talking to my brother about the future. Never me. I just kept watching and listening. The will reading was a nightmare. A mahogany room, the smell of dust and old parchment. My brother, his wife, his 2 slick kids, a few lawyers, and me. I remember the air being thick with expectation. My brother preening like a peacock. The lawyer cleared his throat and started. To my eldest son, who has shown the fire and drive necessary to lead the firm into the future, I bequeath the entirety of the operational assets, including all stock, vehicles, inventory, and accounts receivable, comprising the $50 million empire. My brother's smile was blinding. He took a deep, satisfied breath and leaned back in his chair. Then came my turn. To my son, I leave a single item, the old leather briefcase that has sat in my study for 40 years. The silence in that room was deafening. I felt my face flush. It wasn't the loss of the money. It was the public, final, absolute shaming. It was the official, legal confirmation that I was worth nothing to him but a dusty relic. Everyone in the room looked at me with that pitying, saccharine smile. My brother, the absolute snake, leaned over. He smelled of an expensive, obnoxious cologne. He clapped a hand on my shoulder, a gesture that felt more like a restraining order. "Guess Dad knew who the real businessman was, eh, little brother?" He practically sneered. I said nothing. I just focused on the briefcase the lawyer set on the table. Heavy. Why was it so heavy? I didn't wait for the polite goodbyes. I just walked out with my inheritance. The briefcase. Back in my tiny, rented apartment, I set the thing on my worn kitchen table. It was old, scuffed, and the leather was cracked. It smelled faintly of cigar smoke and old paper. I flicked the latches. Inside wasn't a secret stash of gold bars, just dusty papers, old bills, expired insurance forms, an ancient fountain pen Dad used to sign his first big contract, and a small, yellowed envelope. My name, written in my father's familiar, shaky hand. My hands were shaking too. Hope, maybe, or the realization that I was about to find out if my father was truly a monster or just deeply misunderstood. I broke the seal and pulled out the note. For the one who paid attention instead of waiting to be handed things. That sentence hit me harder than the will reading. Paid attention. It was Dad's acknowledgement of all those years I spent in the trenches of the paperwork, the details, the things my brother called boring. It was a secret nod, a wink from beyond the grave. Inside the envelope was a single, small, brass key and a slip of paper. Not an address, just a name. The Blackwood Trust, Branch 4. I had never heard of it, It wasn't the bank Dad used for the business. It was the first detail that felt right. Dad was all about secrecy and misdirection when he needed to be. The next week, I found the address. The Blackwood Trust was tucked away in a quiet part of the financial district, far from the flash of the corporate headquarters. It was small, discreet, and smelled more of leather-bound books than money. A place for old money, not new hustle. I walked up to the reception. I need to speak to the manager about a safety deposit box. They introduced me to Mr. Harrison, the pale man from the Hook. I handed him the brass key and the slip of paper with my name. My father left me this, I explained. He looked utterly confused. This key, it doesn't match our current vault system, sir. He excused himself, key in hand, and walked stiffly towards the back. The long 10 minutes, tension building. I sat there, trying to appear calm, but my foot was tapping a nervous rhythm against the marble floor. 10 minutes stretched into an eternity. I ran the scenarios in my head. It's an empty box. It's a joke. It's an old penknife. My stomach felt like it was full of gravel. Then, Mr. Harrison returned, and he was not fine. His face was the color of unbleached linen. His eyes were wide, and he kept swallowing hard. "Mr. Sterling," his voice was barely a whisper, "please, follow me." He led me through a heavy steel door and into a plush, private conference room. No windows, just a large, polished table. He carefully placed the key, now wrapped in an old, leather-bound pouch, onto the table. "Mr. Sterling," he began, his voice trembling slightly, "your father opened this box in your name on your 18th birthday. It's an irrevocable trust, meaning it could not be touched by him or anyone else once opened. Only you, with this specific key, could access it." He slid a thick, beige folder across the table. It was sealed with an old wax stamp. "Inside this folder," he continued, pointing a shaking finger, "are the full ownership documents for 3 separate offshore holding companies. Shell corporations, legally established in 3 different countries over 25 years ago. The sole purpose of these holding companies was to purchase, own, and title every single piece of land, the full real estate portfolio, under the original logistics entity." He paused, watching my face. I felt the air leave my lungs in a rush. "Sir, your brother got the business. You see, your father structured the operating company as a renter. He got the P&L, the trucks, the inventory, the $50 million empire." Mr. Harrison wiped his brow. "But you, sir, you got the ground it stood on. You own the land, the warehouses, the distribution centers, the loading docks, all of it. Your brother is merely your tenant." I picked up the folder. The paper felt cool and heavy. It wasn't just a business. It was a map of Dad's entire mind. He hadn't seen me as soft. He had seen me as prudent. He hadn't wanted me to manage the day-to-day chaos. He wanted me to control the foundation. My brother had the flash. I had the substance. I spent the next few days in a haze. I consulted my own lawyer, a quiet woman who specialized in international property law. She confirmed it all. The papers were ironclad, irrefutable. The leases the logistics firm held on the properties were long-term, yes, but they were about to expire. Dad had timed it perfectly. The original lease agreements contained a clause allowing for a mandatory, substantial market rate review upon renewal. The rent could be raised astronomically. I didn't raise the rent immediately. That wasn't Dad's style, and it wasn't mine. I waited. I watched my brother. I saw the reports in the trade journals. He was sinking money into new fleet purchases and a disastrous, unproven expansion into the Midwest, leveraging the perceived value of the land he didn't actually own. He was living up to Dad's assessment, a man who focused on the handout, not the details, a man who paid attention to the spectacle, not the ledger. The moment came 6 months later. I had my lawyer send the renewal papers. The new annual lease rate reflected the true current market value of all the land under the logistics firm. It was a figure that was 1,000% higher than the rate Dad had set for the original 20-year term. It was designed to be impossible. A financial death blow. The day the papers hit his desk, my phone rang. I didn't recognize the number, but I answered anyway. My brother, voiceover, loud, frantic, arrogant, but laced with panic. "What in God's name is this? Are you insane? This rent, this is a joke, isn't it? You can't just slap a 10-fold increase on me. The business can't afford this. It'll kill the profit margin." I could hear the desperation clawing at his usual bluster. He wasn't talking to his little brother anymore. He was talking to his landlord. Me. My voice was calm, almost soothing. The calm that comes after 40 years of waiting. "It's the market rate, brother. You know what a real businessman pays for prime commercial property." My brother, shouting, full of entitled rage. "You think Dad would want this? You think he meant for you to ruin his life's work? This is despicable. You're a backstabbing little accountant. You always were." He was begging. He was cursing. He was finally seeing me. Not the timid little brother, but the man who held the keys to his entire existence. My brother, pleading, "Please, don't do this. I'll give you a share of the profits, a big one. Just don't raise the rent. Begging you." He actually said the word, begging. I let the silence hang heavy, savoring the moment. I thought about the pitying smiles, the little brother comments, the years of being dismissed. I thought about Dad's note. For the one who paid attention instead of waiting to be handed things. I leaned into the phone, and with a measured, low voice, I delivered the line I had been holding in my heart for years. The line my brother had given me, twisted back into a razor's edge. Me to my brother. Guess Dad knew who the real businessman was. And then I hung up the phone. He sold the company within the month. A fire sale, really. The debt from his reckless expansion, coupled with the impossible rent, meant he had no leverage. He got a fraction of the $50 million valuation. Enough to live comfortably, I suppose, but his empire was gone. I kept the properties, of course. Leased them out to a few different, more responsible logistics firms. The income provides me with a quiet, comfortable retirement. I never had to go into the chaos of management. I just controlled the foundation. My father taught me the hardest lesson of all. True power isn't in what everyone sees, but in what everyone overlooks. My brother focused on the flash, the noise, the easy victory. I focused on the fine print, the land deeds, the structure. My brother was a showman. I was a builder. To this day he hasn't spoken to me. But I don't need his reconciliation. I have my validation. I have my justice. The humiliation I felt at that will reading evaporated the day I heard his panicked voice. That old, dusty briefcase didn't contain $50 million in stock. It contained the map to $50 million in leverage. And for that, I am forever grateful to my father. He gave me a secret test, and I passed it with flying colors. That's my story. It's a testament to the fact that you should never underestimate the quiet person in the room, the one who's watching and listening while everyone else is talking. Pay attention to the details, my friends. They are where the real power lies. If this story gave you chills, if you felt that deep, satisfying feeling of justice being served, please smash that like button. Let me know you were here, and tell me in the comments, have you ever been completely overlooked or underestimated, only to come back later and prove everyone wrong? What was your moment of quiet victory? Share your story. Finally, subscribe for more real-life narratives and stories of ultimate justice. Until next time, be shrewd, be patient, and always, always read the fine print. Take care.